Good day, good day, good day, good people. Well, this is Dr. Obioma Martin, your premier accountability coach, and I am with none other than Miss Annabel Quintero. And what I'm really excited about is to have her share her story with you of triumph, of trauma, and victory. And so I know that when you hear her story, you will identify with feeling alone, feeling trapped, feeling stuck, feeling like, okay, what's next? What's next? And so she has such a compelling story. And the work that she gets to do as a result of that is to help people to step out and jump over the obstacles that has caused them historically to be stuck or paralyzed. So, Annabelle.
Thank you for having me, Obioma. Thank you so much. It's always like a thrill and always still, I've just, wow, to be able to share my story, to be able to just say, I'm a best-selling author, to be a speaker advocate coach for Lisa Nichols and really help leaders and be an equity strategist. What people may not know about me is so many different pieces, being a dancer of life. And there was one time I remember when I lived in the Big Apple, I lived in New York City. And I was just, B-girling with hip hop's finest. I was in my first magazine. I had always wanted to model, so I had moved to New York to do that. And I landed this great job on Wall Street. Growing up, we had hard times, so I knew how it felt to skip a meal. So I wasn't trying to be a starving artist. And just really, that moment when you just have destiny in your hands, when you just live in your dreams, and such a wonderful time. And it was my job to get my boss ready for the stock market bell. And I happened to get into work one Tuesday morning really late. So I was like, oh no. So as I'm getting everything ready, all of a sudden I just feel something just fall on my building. And I'm like, what was that? And then the rumbling happened. And I'm like, okay, we're not in Cali. This is New York. New York doesn't have earthquakes. And I was thinking to myself, like, well, what should I do? Like, and where is everybody? And I thought to myself, oh, well, I could go under the desk, right? Because when in an earthquake, you're supposed to take cover under a desk. Well, there were boxes, it was full. And all of a sudden I was just like, ay, Dios mío, ¿qué hago? Like, dear God, what should I do? And I looked into the office and all that sunshine was gone. And it was just this muted gray. And that was my answer. And I was like, okay, Annabelle, you have to try. Just see what's happening. Go outside, make sure everything's okay, and come right back, because leaving the office was not okay. In New York work culture, you do not leave. So there I am, like, okay, I'm going through the hallway and finally get to the stairwell, and there's I go to touch the doorknob, but I couldn't tell if it was hot or cold. And I was like, oh no, if it's hot, I can't open the door. There might be a fire. I don't know. And so I'm like, okay, slow down and breathe. And all of a sudden I listened to my brain synapses. I was like, okay, it's cold. So I open the door and master communicator, find out that, well, there's no one there still. But now I'm like, I can barely breathe. There's like this corrosive stench that is singeing my nose hairs. And I'm like, oh no, there's a fire. So with all my might, I just focused and I put my hand on the railing and I stepped with my left and I stepped with my right and I jumped on the landing and I step, jumped down 46 flights on September 11th. And the things I saw, right? Hysterical people, a burned lady, and just our beloved firefighters ascending their stairway to heaven. And it completely shattered me, shattered my soul. I was intact, thank goodness. My body was fine, but not my mind, not my emotions. And all this trauma was just stuck within me. I really suffered a lot with this diagnosis that they call PTSD, which no one knew what it was. I didn't know what it was. All I knew was I was crying every day. I was fearful. I mean, there was still, now we know it was one day, but even at the time in New York, there was still like a state of war in New York City for weeks, and people were getting threats, and there was, anthrax, being mailed everywhere. So there was just a lot going on. And I just remember just praying and praying, and it would start morning to afternoon till night. I was barely eating, and I just couldn't go on. This was like weeks and weeks. And by a couple months afterwards, I finally went back home, to my trees and my mountains, back to my family, and really learned. I did a 10-day meditation called Vipassana, and it's a methodology. It's not any religion, but it taught me why I was behaving the way I was. I learned about human behavior. I didn't know the way we act, the choices we make is simply a dynamic between what's going on in our mind, whether it's a memory or whether it's a story we're making up, our emotions, and then our bodily sensations. So those three things is what make up our human behavior. And me even having the ability to learn to know there were pieces that made up my human behavior, and realizing, oh, I've just been reacting. I've just been triggered. And whether it was a smell, whether it was a sound of a plane coming over my apartment, I mean, it would always be something that would remind me. And then I realized, okay, but I can choose. I can choose my response. My responsibility, that's what they say responsibility means, is the ability to respond. And it completely transformed how I understood myself and how I was able to really move through PTSD and watch myself, and really always create that space between what just was coming up for me because of a scent or a song, and then me being able to be like, okay, I can just sit and watch. I don't need to react. I don't need to do anything. I can just see it come up and see it go away. And I would have never known that such a traumatic day, I would learn so much about myself, and also help others learn so much about themselves on their own evolution and their life journey.
So, Annabel, what are the three things that you help people to step into, over, jump? What are those three things?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the name of my book, Step, Step, Jump. And the first step is, the first phase is really acknowledging the problem, acknowledging that you have a hurt or a pain, really being honest with yourself. And usually emotions come up that in our society we tend to label as good or bad, but sitting with them and actually asking yourself, okay, if I'm feeling this, why? Usually emotions come up, they're data, and that's your opportunity to ask yourself, okay, all this is coming up. Why is this coming up for me? There's usually either something that you want to do, or a way, or you're feeling a particular way because you feel you don't have it within yourself. But you have to take that time. That first phase is to acknowledge that there's a pain, there's a hurt, there's something there. The second part is a self-reflection. Now, being self-aware is a practice. It's not like you have a checklist and bing, I'm self-aware and you're done. It doesn't work that way. And people love that, right? People always want to think that, okay, I got certified in self-awareness, I'm done. It's a daily practice. And for me, it looked like journaling. Journaling was a huge way, a great way to begin. For people that are, much more spiritual, or, you could meditate, you could pray, silent prayer. And even dance in some ways helps you move through and allows you to process emotions, lets you act them out, lets you get it out of your body. So that's another way. Because even you can put on this, when you're sad, sometimes like I would put on a sad song and then like move and be sad. And then I have that, it's almost like a good big cry. So all of that is the second step, is a self-awareness piece, because that is crucial to your growth. Because then you can see your pattern. Then you can see, well, what have I been doing? Now, the third thing is, well, once you know your pattern, what is the new action you're going to take for a new result? So the third step is that jump. It is that leap. It is, you still having trepidation, but still jumping with courage. And it's necessary, because without that, it makes it almost impossible that you will create something new for yourself, either within yourself or manifest in your life. Embodiment is only possible through action, through a lived experience. It can't stay here. You can't plan forever, and you can't self-analyze yourself and only stay in your mind. You have to take that leap. And so the third is that jump, is that leap. And that's what I help leaders do.
All right. So just to recap, I heard you say the first step is the process. And what are we processing? We are processing our emotions. And then the second step was the self-awareness, so that we can identify when we are triggered and also the patterns of our behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third step is to jump, which is step, jump, which is to take action. Because when we don't take action, we stay stuck. That's simple.
Yeah,
That's
really,
simple.
but things can be simple, doesn't mean they're easy.
No. It's taking a step isn't easy, and jumping isn't easy as well, especially when anxiety shows up, fear shows up, and at the pit of your stomach, it's a whole lot going on in your stomach and in your heart and in your head, and it's just like, yes, you can be overwhelmed with all of those things happening at the same time. So since we know this, you and I know this, what would you say to the listening audience who may be in a space where they're like, that sounds great, but I still don't know how? I'm still uncertain.
You're still uncertain. Uncertainty. Well, I'd say stay more in your emotion, because when you're uncertain, you're usually pondering something, because you have a feeling of desire.
Mm-hmm.
Or you may watch a movie and you see the story and you're like, oh, I want to do that. Like there's like this whisper in your mind, like, well, I want that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that journaling on that is going to get you to acknowledging, being honest with yourself of what you really want, because the clarity that you're looking for is only going to come when you actually writing and really processing. Look, I want this. Like, I keep trying to forget it. I keep trying to compartmentalize. I keep thinking in my mind, I'm too old. The boat passed. I need to just do this one thing and forget about that. But you can't. It always comes back at you. And even like dynamics in relationship will come back when you haven't healed, your role, the role you play in relationships. Sometimes it'll come back that way as well. So in life is always happening for us. And so that situation, that dynamic is always going to keep showing up because there's an embodiment that the universe is asking you to do. And we think it's just the challenge, it's the problem, it's the lack of, but no, there's something on the other side of that life is wanting you to step into so that you can live it out and right, and realize your full potential. And so I'd say journaling for me, I've journaled my whole life. I mean, I have journals from like 3rd grade. So that for me is how I was able to ask myself and process.
Journaling for me is my go-to as well. So where can the audience find your book?
Oh my goodness. Well, they can go to stepstepjump.com and get an audiobook. I narrated it myself. Or you can go same site, or you can go to Amazon as well. And I'd love to hear what you think, how it's helped you on your journey. And I'm just so excited for you all to just make healing and your growth your priority.
All right. Well, you know where to go to get her book. You're going to go to stepstepjump.com and you can get it either the hard copy or you can get the Audible. For those of you who feel like you need this or you're uncertain, get it just because you may find some nuggets in it that you didn't even know you needed. And so, Annabel, thank you so much for being my guest on another episode of Amazing You. And looking forward to continuing to see great things from you.
Oh, thank you so much. And I hope you all just keep step jumping into your greatness.
All right. Until next episode, you guys. See you soon.